Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to our /EntitledPeople, where people truly think it's all about themselves and no one else matters, seriously. And in today's episode, we're dealing with the most entitled Karen coworkers ever, guys. So if you've ever had or have entitled coworkers, you'll love this one because they're ridiculous. I hope you enjoy the stories, don't shake your heads too hard, and as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So I'm 24 years old, turning 25 soon, and my boyfriend and I have birthdays super close together, so we always do a joint party. We planned something chill, food, drinks, good music, and I invited a few of my actual friends from work. They're the people I eat lunch with, play volleyball with, and complain about spreadsheets to. I sent them all private messages because, you know, we're adults and we're not trying to make things awkward for anyone else in the office. Well, apparently, one of my coworkers was talking about it out loud at work, and my 45-year-old coworker, who I barely speak to, overhears. The next thing I know, she's calling me into her office with this serious face like we're about to discuss quarterly performance metrics, and she goes, in the most fragile voice imaginable, "Hey, I'm just really sad you didn't invite me to your birthday party." Of course, hearing her say that, I thought she was joking, but she wasn't joking. She then starts going on and on how left out she felt, how hurt she was, and I'm just standing there trying to figure out if I accidentally walked into a therapy session or something. So I awkwardly apologize and move on, thinking that's the end of it. But spoiler, it wasn't the end of it. This woman actually goes to our boss and she files a complaint that I excluded her and that I'm creating a toxic work environment. I wish I was kidding. The next staff meeting, our manager starts talking about being more sensitive to others and fostering inclusion in the workplace. And this is all over my birthday party. Ever since that happened, she's been walking around the office all mopey and dramatic. Yeah, the entitlement of some people never ceases to amaze me, guys. And seriously, how that Karen coworker is not embarrassed after all of that, I have no idea. I mean, even if OP did change their mind, it would be a pity invite for sure, and the mood would be so awkward at the birthday party. But yeah, if you thought that was a bit entitled, guys, listen to this person's comment. This person says, "So this is about my old boss that I just remembered. About 4 months working my job, it was December. I had made good friends with my small department and I decided to host a Christmas party at my home. It was exclusively a friendly party, no work involved whatsoever. And it was about 7 of us. That was all I could fit in my tiny apartment. The day came and we had a blast. Games, drinking, chatting, and everyone was having a good time and went home with smiles. In the new year, we were all chatting about it and how we all had a blast and we should do another party for Chinese New Year's, when the boss overheard the entire conversation. Here, he just inserts himself into the conversation. He loudly complained that he wasn't invited when he should have been because he's the boss and he deserves to be invited to my party. He said I was being rude and disrespectful towards him by not inviting him and then talking about it in the office, thus making everyone jealous. He then further chastises me by asking why I didn't invite the intern that I barely knew to the party. Over the course of the next few months, to practically anyone he's talking to, even clients, he would talk bad about me for not inviting him. Even at one point saying, if it were up to me and I could do it, Amy would be gone. She wouldn't even work here. She's not a team player. And here's the thing, he even proclaimed that he wouldn't even turn up anyways, but the gesture was important to him. It showed him respect, and I wasn't respecting him by not giving him an invitation. It would have showed that I cared for him and his reputation. He scolded me for not including more people into my own home. He scolded me for not inviting him, and he shouted at me for betraying his trust and going behind his back and hosting a party in my own home for my own friends. The icing on the cake was when he proclaimed that I ruined his reputation and the homeliness of the office atmosphere with my selfish attitude. He said I destroyed his vision of a family office. I never hosted another party after that, and I never went to any other party. Yeah, I hope OP started looking for a new job after that, because that boss was way over the top, right? And clearly we can see why he wasn't invited, because that attitude is horrendous, guys. Also, I love how the guy blames OP for ruining his reputation. Like, what reputation? If anything, he ruined it himself, because complaining for months about it to everyone, including clients, is really unprofessional and makes him seem like a frickin' crybaby. And this person comments saying, since it's clearly devolved into a personal, not professional grievance from your boss, I'd have had no problem talking to him like a person instead of a superior. I would have told him, I'll invite whomever I damn well please to my house, and if you don't like it, you can pound sand. Mind your own business. So for some context, I have a few piercings. I also have dyed hair, rainbow glasses, and a sticker-clad cane. People are gonna stare anyways, so may as well give them something to stare at. I'm also pretty casual. I work in fast food, and I only have a few coworkers, and I and my other coworkers and manager don't see a reason to be excessively professional. I was hired with all of these visible, and I've never been told to remove them by both the GM and the regional manager. And then a new manager got hired. She met me about a week ago, and within 3 days of meeting me, she started commenting on a lot of my behavior and appearance, to the point of demanding I fix my appearance immediately, as she doesn't want to see me at work like this. When I told her I don't see how my appearance affected my ability to do my job, she just told me that she's the boss. Now, I have no problem removing the piercings or dyeing my hair a more natural color, but my glasses are pretty necessary for my current situation. I can sort of see about 4 or 5 feet away with them, and without them, I'm basically useless, and nothing can fix it at this point. So I've stopped bothering with an ophthalmologist. Also, I speak to my coworkers the way they speak to me. We're all pretty casual and friendly. Also, the only thing she noted that was maybe against policy is the piercings, but we're technically allowed 2 stud piercings, and that's what I have. Either way, whatever, I was fine with taking them out. But in a stroke of genius, I went, alright. I took out my piercings and I tucked my hair into my hat. She then decided to insist that my glasses were just aesthetic, because of course, real people who need glasses only wear plain black or metal frames. She was convinced that my glasses are for show, so I take them off and I got sent back to work. At this point, everything is so gray, so one of my coworkers led me back to my spot in line. She then complained about my performance dropping, and she accused me of doing it to spite her. I told her I couldn't see, and she started nagging me about how I need to treat her with respect, and she's not my friend. And once again commented on how casually I talk to people. These shenanigans continued until another manager came in. They saw me without my glasses and asked if I got contacts. I told him no, I was forced to work without my glasses because the new boss doesn't like the look of them. He pulled the new manager into the office and told me to put everything back on because apparently I'm a legal issue waiting to happen without my glasses. I overheard the new manager saying things like, I don't feel appreciated for the work I do here, and OP was being intentionally stubborn. I also overheard the older manager tell her that I'm in fact legally blind, and I had every right to pursue legal action for an ADA violation. I end up getting my ability to wear my piercings returned too. Not that I cared about it, but it's a nice pro. The new manager was angry at me, and she still is, but oh well, I don't talk to her and she doesn't talk to me. That's fine. She's been the subject of criticism by my coworkers though, and I'm pretty sure if your store has 7 active employees, you're not gonna last long there when none of them like you. You know what, I'm not gonna lie, that was quite bold of OP to start working without their glasses, especially when they're legally blind. Like, so many things could have gone wrong, right? But seriously, it's always the bosses with the weird power trips that gets me. Like, as long as people are doing their jobs, Karen, especially in fast food, who the heck cares what they're wearing on their face? Like, yeah, some people do use glasses for fashion, but even then, who does it hurt? Like, she might have just hated rainbow-colored glasses, for all we know. Some people just like to control every aspect of their employees, and it's wild. So this happened a long time ago, and I still get joy from thinking about it. I started working in a photo lab for a very popular store a few years ago, and I was trained by a girl who had worked there for about 6 years. I honestly think she was bipolar or something. Some days, she would be super sweet to me, and other days, she would rip my head off for the most minor stuff. She would say stuff like, "Oh my goodness, you put a frickin' marker in the pen drawer? Heads are gonna roll." But yeah, since she was training me, she had this crazy sense of self-importance and entitlement. She always made me really nervous that I was messing up my job, and she constantly complained about everything I did. It got to the point where she was known as the crazy witch to everyone that worked there. One time, she freaked out and she told me that dozens of customers had lodged complaints about me, but she never specified about what. When I asked my store manager because I was freaking out, he had no idea what she was talking about. She was nuts, and I think she enjoyed trying to make me feel bad, which is tough because I'm pretty easygoing. Anyways, at the end of the night, I would have to remove this film rack out of the film processor, and I would have to put it in a bowl of water to keep the rollers from drying out. In the morning, when she would open, she would take it down from the shelf by the sink, and she would put it back in the film processor for the day. This is how I decided to get back at this psycho coworker. I had to get petty. I began to fill the bowl each night exactly to the brim, and then I would set it on the very edge of the top shelf, which was just out of her reach. In the mornings, she would have to stand on tiptoe to get it down, and inevitably, the water would slosh down her front as she fumbled with the bowl. She of course yelled at me in passing a few times, but I kept it up. She started hanging signs that said not to fill the bowl all the way, or not to put it on the top shelf, but I of course ignored this, and I would cackle to myself each night as I did this. She got more and more pissed off, trying to complain to my store manager, but he pretty much ignored everything she said, because it was well known that she was a crazy drama queen that tried to get everyone in trouble for something or other. Anyways, I guess I cracked her because one day, after like the 20th time, she was trying to complain to him about it. He wasn't really listening, and he refused to write me up for something so silly. She ends up throwing a hardcover book at him as hard as she could, and he fires her on the spot. He then promoted me to her job, and I got a 50-cent an hour raise. Now, I know it's such a petty thing to do, but I really got a kick out of hearing other coworkers tell me how she would storm out of the lab in a huff with water dripping down her face and a damp shirt every morning. And a few times, it really just toppled down and soaked her completely. And knowing that happened, it warms my heart. What a brilliantly played move by OP, and guys, the fact that it drove the coworker crazy to the point that she got herself fired by throwing a book at the boss makes it even more satisfying. But hey, can't say she didn't deserve that, right? Also, imagine if the boss ended up calling the cops on her for assault. That would have really been the cherry on top. This just happened a couple of weeks ago. I'm a 34-year-old female, and I work in a government office in my province. It's a rewarding job, but it doesn't pay well, and I absolutely love having my nails done. My nails have been pretty crappy my entire life, and no matter what oil, supplements, whatever I try, it did not help. So I bought myself a $50 gel kit from Amazon, and I started doing them myself about a year ago. I have a nice little setup at this point, and I'll do my friends' nails from time to time. So that said, I brought my kit to work the other day because I was going to a friend's house after to do her nails. My friend offered to buy a pizza, and we were planning to watch a movie afterwards. I then made the mistake of discussing this plan with a coworker when she noticed the kit sitting on top of my locker when she came in. And oh my goodness, this woman, who's around 50, spent 4 hours leading up to lunch badgering me on how I should give her a free manicure on our lunch break. She saw that I had my favorite teal shade on, and she talked about how much she loved it, how she never gets her nails done because she thinks it's a waste of money, and how I can get some more practice, and it would be so nice of me, blah blah blah. I of course said no. At first gently, more than once, and then pretty firmly that I would be eating lunch on my break. When I got up to go, she tried to act like I agreed to it, and she grabbed her stuff to meet me in the lunchroom. I had to look her in the eye and say, "Karen, I'm going to eat lunch during my 30-minute lunch break. I will not give you a free manicure. Please drop it. You're making me uncomfortable." She refused to speak to me or look directly at me since this. She also talked crap behind my back, and she made up some lie to my boss how I was treating her unfairly. Some of my coworkers have told me about it, and she's a huge gossip with a massive chip on her shoulder about everything. So I can only assume that most people in the office have heard her harrowing tale. Luckily, everyone who's talked to me about it agrees that she's being a complete clown. But seriously, who asks a coworker that you're barely friendly with for a free manicure, let alone insists upon it for hours? To answer OP's question, someone who's had great success over the years getting what she wants using this method. Like, you gotta love people who use others for free stuff, right? Especially when, in her own words, she would never pay for a manicure herself because it's a waste of money. The audacity of some people, right? Like, that's gonna make OP more inclined to give her a free manicure. Like, you can F right off, Karen. And this person comments, "I had an ex-friend like this who would badger people after being told no repeatedly. Her mother let her get away with this stuff growing up, and now she's confused about why her crap doesn't work anymore." I work at a small company that primarily works in e-commerce as sort of a jack of all trades. One of these roles includes me overseeing a lot of advertising budgets through a bunch of different mediums. While I manage these passively on a daily basis, I dive into each one of these platforms intensively on a month-to-month basis to see where we can be a bit more effective. That data, along with sales, also informs another aspect of my job, which is breaking down unit sales to give my boss a clearer picture when he places reorders. Since we're a company with only a handful of people and most have their own specialized roles, we work as a team in an environment that mostly leaves you mostly responsible for your own time. If something lags behind, it's super obvious as to who's at fault. So that said, my coworker who works in logistics is without a doubt a solid gold brat. He often drinks when he begins a shift. Think a 40 or a tall boy or two, and occasionally it causes orders to be misplaced, wrong, or sent to the wrong address. As a treat, sometimes the warehouse will smell faintly of stale beer. On top of this, he's entitled and confrontational because he's the only one that, quote, does a real man's job, i.e. not computer-based, and doesn't like the fact that I have a flexible schedule where I can leave and arrive whenever I please, just so long as the work is done. Luckily, we'll go through phases where I don't interact with him as much or at all over stretches of time that can go through months. He's kept around because it's not easy to find someone who's familiar with specific logistics platforms and can take over the job on day one. And if it happened, it would require me switching my job duties almost entirely to shipping to keep up with demand. So all that said, earlier in the year, we had a trailer full of product come in that I helped him unload along with the rest of the team. Extra hands were welcome, but not entirely necessary. But I came in on a day where I wasn't in a great mood. During the unloading, he starts bitching at me for being too slow, and he told me to pick up the pace, saying, "Put your back into it, bro. You office workers are nothing but weaklings." After years of snide comments like this and just being fed up with his crap, I wasn't having it today. That's when I say to him, "Sorry, dude. I haven't had my morning beers to give me that extra pep in my step." Hearing me say that, he says, "What the F did you just say? Do you want to effing go?" I tell him, "Keep your comments to yourself or you can unload the trailer alone." He then calls me a disrespectful piece of crap and he says, "What the F do you even do here all day, locked up in your office, you lazy mother effer?" Hearing him call me lazy, I thought, oh boy. And at this point, my boss just told us both to shut up and get back to work. I just threw my headphones on and I quietly did the rest of the unload without incident. But as I mulled over the exchange, I decided that this slight on me was gonna be repaid in full. A few days later, I felt it was time for a response, so I decided to move up my reviewing processes for advertising. As part of these duties, I can move a lot of money around. In fact, after a long review, I decided that we were spending a little too much money on third-party fulfillment. Maybe I can even scrape a few extra $100 in sales and savings if I move a few more orders in the house. So I told my boss that I was going to be experimenting with the advertising budgets a little more than usual to see if I could get some extra business. I warned him that it might result in losses or additional money burn to get the data I needed. I have a stellar track record, so he was of course fine with it. Over the next few weeks, this money was slowly moved over to ramp up the experiment. At first, it resulted in a net of about 8 extra orders a day, out of a typical day of 70 or 80 orders. A small profit margin was realized. Fast forward to the present, months later, and the changes that I've made have been fully realized. There is now, on average, an additional 40 to 60 orders that my coworker now has to manually fulfill by himself due to the shift in advertising budgets. On top of that, it's resulted in a significant amount of money, both in savings and profit, due to the orders being fulfilled in-house. My boss is pleased, and he signaled that a raise is possibly coming. Since the raise is currently unrealized, I'm just enjoying getting back at my stupid coworker in the meantime. Any downtime that he used to have between orders, that's all gone now. One of the few metrics he has to deal with is getting orders out on time, or it'll affect his pay. As a result, his beer time has all but disappeared, because there simply isn't enough time in the day. And now, he averages a 30-minute lunch break instead of the full hour he was accustomed to. Half days are now a thing of the past. He now complains fairly regularly to my other coworker that the work just doesn't stop. It's not like me to gloat, knowing that I put him in this position. I'll let the extra work gloat for me. Don't call me lazy. I absolutely love how this story was both a revenge on OP's entitled coworker, who I think totally deserved it, and it's also a personal success for OP and the company. What a win-win situation. And the best part of all, which OP mentioned, is he doesn't even have to hint to his coworker that he's the cause of the extra work. He's just enjoying it from behind the scenes. But wouldn't it be funny if OP confronted his rude coworker and he was like, "It's a good thing you pointed out to me how you aren't lazy. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been willing to experiment with the new setup, enjoy all this extra work." So my wife has this entitled coworker / acquaintance. Now I use the term acquaintance as she does run in our friend circle, but we try to limit or avoid contact with her. We'll call her Carrie because Karen's overused. Anyways, Carrie's known for bullying coworkers at work, saying that she can get people fired. She can't. She'll also scream at people, and she's just got bad behavior. Her favorite thing to intimidate people with is to tell them, if you F around, you will find out. This is important for later. So that said, Carrie had this guy that she would see to do the dirty with. Nothing serious, just a guy she would occasionally see and kick out the door. Carrie's also notorious for collecting engagement rings. She would begin dating a guy to get a ring from them. Or she would get them to pay off some bill for her and then kick them to the curb. Again, I bring this up only as context to her character and to reinforce the fact that she's a piece of crap human being, and to reinforce that the F-buddy guy meant nothing to her. She didn't date him nor tried getting a ring from him. She just used him and then kicked him to the curb. Whenever somebody with money showed her attention, she would also frequently talk crap about this guy behind his back. So that said, Carrie was on one of her short-term engagements. The new guy had just bought her a $6,000 ring, and I'm serious, she collected engagement rings like they were Pokemon, and the guy had paid $10,000 to get her roof fixed. She was so happy with this guy, and she had no interest at all in the guy she was messing around with, who let's call Bill. Enter Mandy. Now Mandy's another coworker of my wife and Carrie. I personally don't know her, but from what I've been told, she had just gotten out of a 15-year marriage where she wasn't allowed to do anything and was very controlled. Carrie and Mandy are friends, well, drinking buddies, so randomly, Mandy meets Bill. Mandy doesn't know Bill's history with Carrie, nor does she know that he even knows her. They hit it off, like really good. They're getting along so well that they begin dating, and it blossoms into a great relationship, one that's built on respect and love. Of course, Carrie finds out, and she loses her effing mind. Again, she never dated Bill, and never wanted to date Bill. Hell, she's currently engaged to a guy, but she's freaking out because how dare Mandy take her man, and she needs to let the world know about it. Carrie started by going to their boss daily and asking him, "Why does that little bitch still work here?" She would also loudly exclaim this on the work floor for all to hear. Also, Carrie spent a whole hour yelling and screaming at her for something Mandy didn't even do. Carrie would also frequently harass them both. She would loudly call her all the nasty things you can say about someone, and she would not only loudly say these things in their proximity, but she would tell anyone that would listen how she was wronged by Mandy and Bill, and what she thought about it, and that Mandy is effing around, so she's gonna find out. So fast forward 2 months. Mandy and Bill are still together, and they're extremely happy. Carrie is surprisingly no longer engaged to that guy. So once again, Carrie sees Mandy one night at a bar, and she begins screaming at her once again. Mandy, finally having enough of it, attempts to talk to Carrie in an attempt to reconcile. Carrie's having none of this, and she keeps calling her names and proceeds to tell her that Mandy is effing around and one day she's gonna find out. And she ends it with calling her a C-word. Well, I'm guessing something snapped, and Mandy straight up throws a beer bottle, hitting her in the face, knocking her on her ass. There's a slight pause, and someone who I don't know pipes up, and they say, "It looks like you were the one who effed around and found out." Carrie, obviously stunned, gets up and leaves. The next day, she shows up to work with a very obvious black eye. She's not saying anything to Mandy, but she's going around to everyone else complaining that she was the victim, not understanding that everyone's been watching her bully this poor girl for the last few months. And that's the end of it. Nothing else has happened since then. I'm sorry this got long-winded. I just wanted to share this story with you. And what a story that was. And seriously, every once in a while, when you think the world is unfair, karma comes around and sets everything right. Well, maybe not karma in this sense. It was justice in the form of a beer bottle to the face. But holy moly, guys, I'm just wondering how Carrie is still employed at this place, because any HR department worth their salt would have had a field day with her. Like, you can't help but to wonder if she's engaged to the boss or something, or has something going on. Who the heck knows? I just know nothing is more satisfying when somebody uses the F around and find out, and they get a nice healthy dose of it. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit the thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's an r/entitled people episode, another one where OP's psycho neighbor thinks she's the landlord and she gets frickin' evicted. It's such a wild episode, so go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.